Hi, I'm Roberto.
And I'm Brad.
We're from Source One Environmental, and today we're going to go over a pillow install from start to finish.
First thing you need to do is go over your kit contents. Every kit is going to have an instruction sheet, and on this sheet it has a list of everything that's supposed to be in this box.
So the first thing we want to talk about are zip ties. Depending on the size kit that you're using, you may have to bridge these. And to do that, all we're doing is feeding one into the other, and then anywhere between 4 and 6 inches of tail should be sticking out. And then we also supply wire. So in the cold days, these can become brittle. So we supply the wire as well. And then you'll have your spatulas.
And your tape. The tape is to tape all their air connections. Rubber gloves. For everybody to have 2 sets of gloves on. So when you're wetting your mat out and it gets slimy and it's hard to deal with your ties, you just peel off your top layer gloves. Next we have protective sleeves. One is for the dry run and one is for your live run. And then your silicate resin. This is all pre-measured. So all you have to do is open the bags and mix. There's no weighing, there's no measuring in this at all.
And then depending on the size kit you could have either 4 or 10 bags. It's all depending on what size kit you're using. Same with the work surface. The larger kits, gonna have larger work surface. And then fiberglass, again, they're all gonna be labeled so that depending on what size kit you're using, it's all gonna be labeled for specifically what size you're using.
All right, next we're gonna go over the equipment checklist. On your instructions, there's a list of things that does not come in your kit. Sewer camera, a sewer cleaner, your pull cable, measuring tape, felt pen, wire snips.
Then you're gonna have your regulator, an air line, 30-inch and above. You're gonna go to a fast fill, fast deflate, and then a 1-inch air line with the Chicago style fitting on it. And then we're gonna swap out spreading with spatulas to a concrete brush.
Next, we're gonna prepare our packer with our protective sleeve. You're gonna have a partner, he's gonna put his arms inside the protective sleeve and he's gonna bunch it all up onto his arms and then grab a hold of the packer, lift up, and I am gonna work that plastic all the way down to the other end and zip tie the ends like a candy wrapper. When you tighten your zip ties, make sure that your shackle is sticking out of the plastic.
And then you also want to snip off any excess of the zip tie.
Okay, once you've got your protective sleeve on and candy wrappered at the ends, you need to take the excess plastic material and make sure everything's folded on top of your packer. And once that's done, you got your air fitting. All you're gonna do is just make a diamond with your hand like this and pop it through. Now you can tape this right here at the base if you want. It's not real necessary.
Before we go any further, we want to do a test inflate on our packers. We know that it's not always possible to have the right size pipe because they get rather large. But what we want to do is outside of the pipe, and right now I have about 2 psi, 1 or 2 psi on this packer right now. We want to get it round, and then we want to be able to check and make sure that none of our fittings are leaking, that the packer is holding air. And what I've actually done is taken it off the active air compressor and just closed the valve. And we let it sit for about 10 minutes and it's still round. So we know we have a good working regulator, packer, and airlines. The next thing you want to do is drive our camera to our spot of repair, visually inspect the area. This is when you're going to check to see if the pipe needs to still be cleaned, condition of the pipe. You're just checking on everything up to and slightly past your point that you're going to be repairing. So then you want to make a physical mark. Take the tape that comes in the kit, and then we're going to pull our cable tight. You're not pulling on it, but just making sure that it's tight. And then you're going to make a mark on your actual cable. Once we've done that, then we'll drive the camera back, and then we'll go to transfer the measurement onto our cable. All right, so next we're going to transfer our measurement. So depending on the camera system you're using, you want to make sure that you're in a position that you know it is home. So camera head's pointing directly up or directly down. And then the reason we do that is that when the camera head is right in the center, we know we have 2 foot of repair on either side of the brake. So once we've done that, we pull our camera cable tight, just like we did when we were at the pipe, and then make sure that we pull our cable tight as well. And you're not yanking on these, but you're making sure that everything is tight, just like you did with your measurement. And ours happens to line up right with this shackle. And then this is going to be where we stop pulling or repair into place. And make sure you have a nice tape mark, nice and visible. And make sure that you put the tape mark on the cable and not the airline. Airlines can be flexible and can actually have a chance of moving your patch in or out of the pipe just that little bit. So you want to make sure it goes on the cable. But that's how we transfer a measurement.
Now that we've got our packer sleeved and our measurement transferred, this is where you can go do your dry run. If you have any questions or concerns about getting the packer into position, there is an extra sleeve in the kit so you can do your dry run to make sure you can get it into position without any hiccups. Once you pull that out of the line, for your dry run, you're going to inspect the plastic and make sure there's no gouges, no rips, things like that. If there are, you need to send the camera back in the line to identify the problem and address it.
Before we wet out our fiberglass mat and install our pillow patch, we want to reference our checklist. So we've tested our equipment, we've transferred our measurement, we've laid out all our pipe patch materials, we've prepared our packer, and if need be, we've performed a dry run.
Now we're to the wet out process. This is where I kind of take a step back, make sure all the air lines are hooked up right, everybody knows their position and what they're supposed to do. Just kind of get all of the trip hazards out of the way, make sure everything's set up in position so that way when you wet this out and put it on the packer, it can go directly into the pipe without any hiccups or trips or anything like that. So when we mix our resin, whatever they put in the kits, all has to be mixed at the same time so that they cure at the same time. To mix the resin, there's these 2 black pins. Just gonna pull them off. And you grab the bottom of your Mylar pouch and you're just gonna separate. So everything mixes together. You wanna mix everything together at the same time. You want to use your spatula to get everything out of the corners and edges. This is all pre-measured, so we want to make sure all of the material gets mixed. We're looking for swirling. We don't want to see any swirling. That means it's not mixed properly. So we just want all one uniform color. Do the same thing to your other bags. Again, you're just pulling this material out of the corners and edges so they mix well with the other material. You know, look at it, make sure there's no swirling, make sure everything's mixed together. It's all one color. These look good. Those look good. So on the shaggy side, gets about 2/3 of the resin, or 3/4. And then the other side, the shiny side, gets the remaining resin.
Just nice big pulls. Want to make sure we don't see any more white fibers. Want it to all have resin saturated into it.
Make sure you get your edges real well. No white showing. And the more guys you have, the easier this is. Making sure this is getting saturated real well. You don't want to scrape off too much. So the flatter you have your spatula, the more it leaves behind. You want to make sure you got enough resin for your whole entire patch, but you don't want any pooling. Pooling causes slugs at the end of your patch.
So all we're going to do is kind of, like in the front here, I pulled off any excess that we had. And that's what Brad's talking about. We don't want to leave that behind, especially before we go to flip this. Pull back tight.
Smooth out any of the wrinkles. Once we wetted out our patch, we gotta fold one edge to the middle.
It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle. You just want everything to be square.
And then this is gonna overlap that first edge by an inch. So if you overlap that an inch, this patch is gonna be exactly 4 feet wide. You're gonna take your plastic, kind of fold to the edge of your patch. Keep everything nice and clean. You're not stepping on wet resin. And now we're going to load the patch onto the packer.
You want about 10 inches of fiberglass on this side so that when we have our first fold, it sits right in the center of the packer. And if you happen to be doing a different size other than the 1548 that Brad and I are doing, we also have videos that talk about specifically the fold methods for all the way up to 72 inch. So second fold went over, we have our edge here. You can either tuck this down below, or once we fold it, it's gonna kind of sit on that edge. So
it'll end up on top.
So this is our baseline. We'd have 3 on the patch and 1 on each end on the bladder itself. You can always add 1 more in the front where the patch is going to get the most abuse, but right now this is ready to go into the pipe. Now that we have the zip ties on, the excess snipped off, we have the patch, the packer right at the edge of our pipe. Now we're going to pull it into place.
Pull!
Good. Once it's in to our mark, we're going to start adding air.
As you're airing it up, you're going to want to listen for them zip ties to break, so you know that the packer is getting air.
You want to make sure that you reference your cure chart, which is going to be located on your kit. So depending on the type of resin you're using, there will be a working time and cure time for each resin. Now that we've installed our pillow patch, we want to make sure we reference our checklist once again. So we have put down our time that we started mixing our resin. We've also wrote down on the box the time that we inflated our packer, which is then going to tell us, based off the resin that we used, that we need to pull our packer at what time.
Now that we've waited our allotted time, we can deflate and pull our packer. This has been an overview of the pillow patch system by Source One.
If you have any other questions, contact your local sales rep or visit us online at s1eonline.com.
I'm Brad.
I'm Roberto, and we're with Source One Environmental.